For the day. How's everyone doing? Um, we don't have a visit today. We visit Weston Monday, Wednesday, Friday, sometimes Tuesdays. So I have a day off today from that. So I decided to start working early. The first shift is always my favorite shift. Um, but there's been a lot going on in terms of intentional crazy making behavior. And this has been very well documented for going into 6 years or more now. And I think that it's beginning to afflict and affect more people than just myself and my family. So I think that that is the reason why it's getting more attention. Um, but there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of creating a narrative intentionally, you know, surrounding that narrative with circumstances, environmental or otherwise, that are meant and made to support that narrative. I want to talk about some of the discrepancies that I have personally witnessed or encountered over the last several days during the period of the George Floyd issue, when George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, within just a few short months of each other, were both brutally murdered, as represented by the media, by members of law enforcement. None of us were there. We can only perceive what we believe happened based on the information that's communicated to us. But during that time of BLM and COVID in 2019 and 20, the entire city of Chicago was shut down. The bridges that connected the outskirts with the inner city were all up so that you could not get across them. There was marching going on. There was protesting going on. There were smash and grabs going on. There was looting going on. There was rioting going on. There were police cars overturned, engulfed in flames, among many, many other things. Now, today and yesterday, the last several days, I've been in a space where I've been picking up Uber riders who have been sharing with me various concerns that they have perceived as being a possible threat to us over the last several days. This information has become incredibly skewed and varied from person to person. I'm not here to judge the credibility of the people I interact with. If you meet a stranger on the street and you say, hi, hello, how are you? And they communicate something to you, you don't typically go above and beyond to say, well, what does this person do for a living? Where does this person live? Where does this person cite their sources or get their information from, right? So you don't really know. Now, I've had yesterday all day, everyone was talking about, with great disgust, the fact that a woman had run over an ICE agent with her car and caused him some sort of physical pain or suffering. The argument was that the woman should not have been where she was. She was not an ICE agent. The area that she was in was closed down to her. She was not supposed to be accessing that area. And even after numerous verbal instructions that she should not be in that area, she still attempted to literally use her vehicle to run an agent over and squash their insides, rendering them either dead or very much harmed. The opposition says that she did not do that she never hit the man, that she at most grazed the man. Now, this was the biggest debate that we had about this situation. This was what was being debated online on my news feed. This is what was being debated in my car. This is what was being debated in general. And this was the only news I had heard. Today, just 24 hours later, pardon me, the narrative has been heavily surrounding the accusation that in that specific set of circumstances, the woman in the face after he was hit with her car. That the woman is dead. If she is, rest in peace to whomever she is. And that this ICE officer was given total immunity by Jay Vance, that he will not be pursued or charged with any crime, and that he will receive full immunity. I heard this from at least 3 writers today and several people who I've spoken with. In my social media algorithm, they're still saying nothing about a woman being shot and murdered. They're only saying that there was an ICE agent that was struck with a vehicle and dragged, and he was just doing his job. So I'm wondering, are our social media and other outlets for receiving news that are incoming, so meaning not something we're going out and seeking, so not just turning on the TV and, or not so much turning on the TV, but so much that it's not, what am I trying to say here? Is the news that we're being filtered subjective to various teams or groupings that we may be classified under? Are a portion of the population receiving certain news while another portion of the population receives other news? I've had people say that all of this is just another publicity stunt. I've had people say that COVID and BLM and George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were all lies and publicity stunts. I've had people get very upset over people saying that those things were occurring and that they were publicity stunts. I've heard people, who have, there were several buildings with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor's faces painted on them, high rises all around the city. Now, in addition to that type of news coming through that may or may not be reputable or trustworthy, I've also had a lot of bipolarity in the recollection of certain events and time periods that have taken place. So there have been many people who have perceived and recollected the same things that I and others have experienced in a way that is very different from each other. How can we both be standing in the same spot, looking at the same thing, seeing something different? How? Right? So when it gets to that, it starts, once you've ruled out perception issues or errors as being the problem, now you're opening the possible diagnosis of what the problem could be to more malicious, nefarious, premeditated efforts. Is someone intentionally causing this confusion in our demographic? Are there, or is there, an intentional effort to make people scared or confused, or maybe they're not scared or confused, they're just wrong about what's going on? And then if you give someone a bunch of wrong information and that fuels and shapes their decision-making process, what is the potential outcome, and how could it be involved with, resolution for any of these subjects or topics if these subject and topics are not actually real? It seems like, what type of person, place, or thing would benefit from not having the general public all on the same page, and why? Right? And that's what I'm currently experiencing. There is a tremendous amount of confusion, even more, mis and disinformation being presented, and not too much available in the way of making sense of it all. So, that's kind of where I'm at with it. And I'd like to remind you guys, none of this is by mistake. I was told, I was warned by several people that there was an effort, an external effort, and still likely is an effort to cause myself and others who have either experienced, witnessed, or are currently experiencing or witnessing some of these issues as, you know, having occurred. And that the effort is allegedly to make these people go crazy or lose their minds or feel confused. And then from there, you'd have to take it on a case by case basis to see what would the motivation be to make the person go crazy or the group go crazy. But I just wanted to give you guys a quick check-in. The big kids are good as far as I know, all in school doing their thing. Weston is with Xavier's mom. We'll see him again tomorrow at our regularly scheduled visits, and they have gotten a better control over the visits now. There were several weeks over the holidays that we were not permitted to see him as is court ordered for all 3 visits because they could not find transportation. So all of these things have been issues that I have been blatantly denied my constitutional right to address and continue to be denied and restricted in addressing. So even when I appear to be happy and carefree and happy-go-lucky, even when I begin to disassociate, the reality still is what it is. I've not been heard. The constitutional rights and amendments that our ancestors have fought for have not been enforced, and I am a little more than a little frustrated.